Vertpig, you guys remember Vertpig launched, was it about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and they were accepting the British pound as a pairing with Vertcoin, and they had to end up shutting down just due to some investor things or something was going on back then. Now, something else to remember, Vertpig is not directly affiliated with us. This was launched by a community member who really loves Vertcoin. Now they work with us as far as working with our developers and making sure that we information share and just help each other out, basically when it comes to getting this squared away. But they are a separate entity, but they have relaunched today. Today is the launch date for vertpig.com, where you can actually trade euros for Vertcoin. You can trade Vertcoin for Bitcoin or Litecoin. So this is now available for users to be able to take, €1 and go buy Vertcoin directly. So now we have a direct pairing with a fiat currency, and I know a lot of people were asking about Vertbase as well, with the USD and possible Australian dollar pairing. That is still in working progress, and I think they said June 1st is kind of their when they're going to be launching Vertbase. I don't know if that is still on track, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting to be able to have the euro directly paired with Vertcoin. There's not a lot of other coins that have that ability.
Yeah, and to just put on to explain about the process just a little bit, the biggest hurdle is banks, to be able to back these new Vertpig and Vertbase. And in the U.S., it's very hard to find a bank to back this up, because that's kind of if you know the word, it's a little bit like Schadenfreude, which is basically taking pleasure in one's misfortune. I believe that's what the thing is. But basically, the banks are trying to support the cryptocurrency by backing it up. It's just a measure of how dependent we are on banks, and that's why Justin and Adam, Vertpig and Vertbase, they had initial issues. I know Justin, definitely in the U.S., much more stringent policies for banks to back up Vertbase, and one of the big things is there's only a small set of banks that will be because of regulations. There's a small set of banks that will actually willingly or are able to, based on regulation, to back up some of these exchanges, right? And because it's such a small amount of banks that are able to do that, they can go ahead and charge you your arm for getting backup, to getting them to back you up. And it's just a big hurdle. But I know Justin has been making significant progress, which is fantastic.
I think out of all the banks in the US, Justin came down to 2, I believe.
Yep, it was just 2.
It just shows how hard it is. It's ridiculous. I know myself, there's ridiculous blockades on cryptocurrency right now from banks across the world. And even the card issuers themselves. I think recently, because I had signed up for Coinbase, I think it was 2 odd years ago or something. But I had to reissue a card, and it turns out that MasterCard, even my bank or MasterCard, has blocked purchases to Coinbase. And I'm like, I couldn't physically register the card, even though it's a physical same card from last time. So the level of anti-competitiveness in this is just ridiculous. I'm not sure when, and especially in countries like Australia, where we're pretty favorable for cryptocurrency at the moment. I know the banks really aren't. But it's really interesting how I was just wondering if it'll ever sort of turn the table, and the banks are sort of given some pressure to actually relieve this. This is competition. You can't do this. You can't just stranglehold them.
Well, unfortunately, banks, they've had a monopoly on this system for a while, so they're seeing this as a threat. And I mean, I'm going to be honest. If I was a banker, I wouldn't want to facilitate the destruction of my own business. And, I would do whatever I could in order to not allow that. But unfortunately, it's going to take one. There's going to be one bank that embraces it. They're going to fully embrace it, and that will be I guess, if anybody has seen the new Infinity Wars movie, The Avengers, where, you know, they actually have a scene in there where there's a shield that's blocking all of this hordes of people coming into this into Wakanda. And they open up one little section, and they just flow in through that. It's going to be the exact same way with the banking system. As soon as one bank allows for it, people are going to rush into that bank. All the other banks are going to see the popularity of this, the opportunity for them to be able to facilitate those transactions, and then it's going to just be a floodgate of all the other banks. So it's just going to take one to knock down the rest of them.
Oh yeah, and +1 for the Avengers Infinity War reference. Good job on that one. I think it's Goldman Sachs, honestly, because Goldman Sachs just opened, I believe it was Goldman Sachs, right? I don't remember, but the Goldman Sachs...
They're invested in Circle.
Yes, they're invested in Circle, and they also, I believe they're the bank that started the cryptocurrency trading desk. They don't do, that many coins just yet, but it seems like Goldman is the one that's going to start that floodgate opening. I know JP Morgan with Jamie Dimon, they're trying to do something as well, but Goldman Sachs probably already opened those floodgates. We're just waiting for the hordes to come in.
I think it's really a situation of the banks, one, being apprehensive, but then I think as you mentioned, I think it's going to be a mixture of, it's going to be, the next wave is probably going to be something to do with greed from the banks, and secondly, a bit of FOMO from them, like, oh crap, we're losing customers.
We already.
And then the next chapter is, oh crap, what have we done? And oh no, we're losing more customers.
and then now it's reverse Schadenfreude, where we're basking in their misfortune. But you're right. And I mean, in the beginning, especially in something in December, it's where people were driven by greed and FOMO, which were by retail investors, like everyday people. Institutional investors, they're gonna do the same thing, and then of course the same thing's gonna happen where it's like, oh crap, what have we done?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think in terms of the crypto space moving forward, I think it's going to be very critical on how people store their crypto, because in the end, I think I've tweeted about this a lot, is the biggest problem that crypto is going to face, the biggest challenge, is not turning into the banking system we already have. Now, there's a couple of ways that can happen. That can happen, one, through majority hash power. You can have all those things happen. You can call out banking. The second one is how people just store their crypto. The majority of people don't care. They've used banks largely. A lot of people have used banks their whole lives and nothing's happened. I'd say so that would be particularly true in somewhere like Australia, where we weren't hit hard by the financial crisis. We didn't have banks collapse. We didn't have really anything happen because we were quite reliant on China. And I think people wouldn't really care about storing their crypto properly. So I think people, if banks are looking to open up crypto trading desks and doing these things and actually store people's crypto, well, then yes, they still have control of your money. And you've just built the same thing. They're still just holding your money. And it is quite interesting seeing how that will play out. I don't know if we'll ever get an event, because Australia, up until recently, didn't have that law where they could take your life savings, your I don't know what you guys call it. We call it superannuation, like the money that gets put aside into from your job into a savings fund that you can't touch. Yeah. So that the government couldn't take that. That wasn't a law.
That's a law now there?
Well, they can take it in extreme circumstances. Yeah.
Okay.
So they can take it in extreme circumstances. This has actually happened in Canada before, where people lost their entire life savings, like their retirement savings, and that was quietly passed, I think, late last year. And again, no one really talked about it.
It's not something that they're going to tout,
Yeah,
we're going to take all of your life savings that you've built over the years, and
Oh man!
So it's just I think people have to be really careful, because again, where everyone says, "Oh, it's a revolution," but I think reality is, I think a lot of people, it's still going to take so much education, so much rebuilding of how people manage their money in the first place, and just the sort of the workflow. How do you live a crypto life? Do you put your private keys on your bed? You store them somewhere? Is it somewhere like I don't understand. Like the average person has to be able to get that sort of workflow of how do I do this?
Oh, there are some people who store their money in like under their mattress and in a shoebox under their bed. there are people who do that, and touching upon what you said about Canada, and that's insane to me, something to think about. North Korea back in 2008, while the United States was doing quantitative easing, inserting more money into the supply, North Korea did the exact opposite, where people were saving up a lot of their money, a lot of their wealth, and North Korea, just said, what, tomorrow we're gonna do a new currency, and you have like 5 days to exchange it, and oh, by the way, yours is only gonna be worth half. Now imagine that. You're saving up your life savings or your life, and all of a sudden the government just goes, oh, by the way, we're going to exchange this currency, and your wealth is only going to be worth half now.
So that's a great point to touch on what we were talking about earlier with Bitmain and that 51% hack or the attack on a network. If your goal in cryptocurrency was I want to get one Bitcoin, that's my ticket to the moon, that's going to buy me a Lamborghini one day, whatever ambitions you have regarding cryptocurrencies, you get that one Bitcoin. And right now, the reason why that one Bitcoin is very expensive is because there's only 21 million of them. And that rule is set because of consensus, because those rules are dictated to by all of the miners. Now, if you have someone that comes in with 51% of the hashing power and can change those rules, i.e. a government changes the rules on the currency, now there's 1 billion Bitcoins. There's not just 21 million. Now your Bitcoin's going to fall in value, just like if you look at any other government in the past who has, printed money or changed monetary policy to devalue the currency. It's the same principle. It's just different players, and it's a different atmosphere. It's all digital. It's all on a computer versus having a federal government that has arms that can, basically take your stuff, like you were talking about in Australia and Canada. They can take your savings. Here, you can have somebody who has enough hash power that they can rewrite the rules so that your savings are now worthless. So it's a direct equivalent. It's just in cryptocurrency versus a government-backed fiat system. So, but yeah, I think and that's thinking about how not to recreate the banking system is hard. Recreating the banking system is easy because it's what everybody's used to. That's what everybody is aware of, and they're used to the mechanics of it and the lack of responsibility when it comes to the current banking system. Because if you mess up or if you send money to the wrong person, the bank will refund you. In crypto, you don't have that. You have to be very responsible with how you store your stuff, how you send your stuff, because you are, at the end of the day, your own bank. And I think it's going to take a long time and a lot of effort to get people to take on that responsibility.
Yeah. Go ahead, Plankton.
Sorry. I think that it's at the moment you're seeing crypto being driven by one main emotion. One main thing, which is greed. And greed seems to be it seems to be that it doesn't. Everyone's just buying the latest and hottest thing and whatever. But I think what we really haven't seen yet from the mainstream country, from the mainstream people or investors, is the fear side of buying cryptocurrency. So in a couple of countries, I don't know if everyone's been paying attention, but a couple of countries have showed examples of this. And it's been called Bitcoinization of countries. So you've got countries where, like South Africa, Ghana, Ethiopia, I believe is one of them, where their government is in turmoil and the public is buying cryptocurrencies. So the people are buying cryptocurrencies basically because their national currency is hyperinflating, and their money is practically worthless, or it's deflated. It's worth less and less every single day. And they want to get out of that system. And the only thing that's accessible to them is Bitcoin. And we really haven't seen that really in history recently in any really large country. I think the best example of it was probably 50 odd years ago, in 50, 60 odd years ago, in Germany, went to from the gold mark to the paper mark. And there's pictures in World War II of people holding, I think the paper mark initially was worth 25 US cents. And then within I'm not sure of the time period, I think it was in 2 years, it was worth a trillionth of a US cent.
They hyperinflated it so much that you would need a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. And they were doing that because the government had to pay for stuff, so they just printed the money, but it devalued the currency. And these other countries are doing this as well. I pulled up an article from September 2017 talking about the first Bitcoinization of a sovereign state is happening now, where they were talking about Venezuela. And Venezuela has issued its own cryptocurrency, the petro, that's backed by its oil supplies. But it had to do that because its money had just plummeted in value because they had hyperinflated it to be able to cover all of the government services and everything. They needed to have the money to dole out to the people. And as a result, now it's worth less and less. And the same thing's happening to the US dollar, to any currency. You have inflation over time. It's just, it has to be controlled. It's the same reason, at least here in the United States, a Happy Meal at McDonald's doesn't cost $2 now like it did when I was a kid. Now it's $4, or so it's doubled in price between now and then. With Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies that are commodities, that are not securities, with billions and billions of coins out there, when you have a set number of 21 million, that's it. There's no printing. There's no more coins unless you get that 51% attack where they change the rules. But it's stable, and it's only going to go up in value because you're going to have more people that need it, and you're going to have less of it. Where this is the exact opposite of the hyperinflation, where you have more money than people need, and as a result, you need a wheelbarrow full of money in order to buy a loaf of bread.
One of the interesting facts is that the average lifespan of a fiat currency going back in history is only 40 years.
A lot of people don't think about that.
No, everyone just assumes that they're everlasting forever.
I mean, it's I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. It's the "it can't happen here" effect. That's not the official term, but people tend to think, oh yeah, whatever, it happens there, but how can it happen here? That's not possible. This time it's different. Again, that's part of the effect, and it's just those things that you trick yourself into. You just need to be, as he said, as we keep mentioning, educated about this, educated about history, educated about how our system works, whether understanding the basics of the economic system and how inflation works and that. It's just one of those things that people really need to actively think about, because when it comes down to a time where it can't happen here, it can't happen here, all of a sudden it happens. Nassim Nicholas Taleb has a book entirely about it called The Black Swan, where if you're a turkey and for the first 1,000 days, the person who owns you or the person that feeds you keeps feeding you, and every life is great. You have a nice little cage or bed, that you sit down on, and you walk around and graze. And a lot of people, what they think is that after the 1,000th day, the 1,001st day, the 1,001st day, you're going to be fed, you're going to be cleaned, or whatever, however turkeys are taken care of. But then to someone like maybe you or me, Canen, that turkey is our Thanksgiving dinner, and they get killed. And people don't
tend to think of, man. I love a smoked
turkey. Yeah. So, to the turkey, the 1,001st day seems like, just business as usual. But that turkey does not see, quote unquote, the black swan that's happening where, actually tomorrow's Thanksgiving and you're going to be someone's dinner. And people really need to actively think about that.
And I think, and unfortunately, there's a lot of different podcasts and groups out there that talk about cryptocurrency, and most of it is, hyper fun, moons and everything else. here we like to talk about the realities of what could happen, what, go over the mindset that we have as a project, and some of the things that we think about. A lot of people don't want to discuss, and that's why we're hopefully never going to be trapped by a third-party entity such as Bitmain or something like that causes problems on our system, unlike other groups that, it could sneak up on them, like we had with Zcash, and we had, with some of these other projects where now they're having to institute the philosophy and the stuff that we have already been doing since our inception, because we're trying to think outside of the box in every aspect when it comes to merchant adoption, when it comes to network security, when it comes to ease of use of the product. We're trying to think of every scenario and to be able to cover it. And we're doing that on a non-ICO, non-airdrop, non-pre-mined coin, where most of these other projects, they have tons of liquidity to be able to pump out to people to think about this stuff on a full-time basis. But yeah, I think that's something that we have to really hit home in our future broadcasts and just continue to hit it home as a project.